Yeah. Let's talk about let's just talk about what it was like for you on your first kinetic operation.
Kinetic being a JTAC or kinetic shooting? Just any kinetic.
Whichever came first.
Yeah, so the very first night was kinetic. We went out on our first op after turning over, and at that point I was in the back of a Humvee. I'm an assaulter, and we go out for a guy, and I end up switching into the driver's seat after the op. So the op was pretty quiet, but lots of there's always shooting on the way in and the way out, just both for the bad guys to sort of recce where we're at. So they would, shoot up in the air just to kind of like identify where we're at in the town, right, to each other. So that was an experience like, oh, shoot, they're not shooting at us, but they are, they're shooting. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time sort of hearing it. So, yeah, and that target was pretty quiet, but on the way out, we for sure caught some shots off of roof towards the Humvees and stuff, and we're like, oh, shit, And then by the third night, on our way in, we're driving really fast, and on those infills, there's a couple IEDs going off that just miss. And I'm like, oh, shit. So now every time we're driving, I'm looking at trash. I'm looking at everything going like, man, any of this shit can explode at any time. You're just kind of sitting in there going like, let's fucking get there. Hopefully we don't blow up. And it's just a really strange feeling as a new guy on my first, when we land that plane to get on deployment, you come off that airplane, that air is just so pungent, filled with just smoke and whatever the smells are, and the humidity of it, the heat of it, and you're like, wow, I'm in a whole different world right now, And so that only took 2-3 missions to just kind of get used to that, kind of a little bit of a shock, to go, all right, we're in it, because when you're going through training and all that, you're just visualizing it, you're just imagining it. Mm-hmm. And then you get there and you're in it and you're like, wow, okay, I'm in it. Just, there's nothing else to do. Just try to focus on what you're doing, So it was only a matter of time before we got hit by an ID. I think collectively we had a little bit of an ego as a team, like, oh, hey, these motherfuckers keep missing. They can't get us. A little bit of arrogance going on, And that got shut down real quick when we caught a flat tire on the way back one night. And, instead of, you can go back and forth with the men in the arena stuff and armchair quarterbacking, but instead of pulling off, holding security and trying to fix that thing, we just rolled with it, but we were so slow. We're rolling so slow, so the vehicle in front of me made a right turn onto one of the main streets to get back to, the little sort of highway going back, out of Solder City. And an EFP blew up, an explosively formed penetrator, copper plate, which they had started using recently. It sort of blasts this shaped charge towards you, so it's not like a blast from underneath like a traditional IED, but it forms the copper breaks up, and it's so hot they turn into little plasma bullets, and it just melts through everything like Swiss cheese, even vehicle armor and people. So they caught that. 4 guys in the back of the Humvee got killed, including Jason Lewis, was a SEAL. Ended up naming Camp Lewis after him. Combat cameraman and, 3 guys. Combat cameraman and a TSE guy, technical surveillance guy. And then 1 Terp was back there, but he survived everything. So the turret gunner, his gun got completely sheared off the barrel, and a chunk of the barrel, I think, went essentially either a piece of plasma or that chunk went through Jason Lewis's chest. And so one of my first experiences doing this medevac was assessing what was going on, and that was hard, seeing those guys. So Bobby, the combat cameraman, was still alive essentially, but he was bent over because his face was just splayed open with blood coming out and him trying to breathe. So when we eventually got the medevac, he didn't make it on the 20 or 25 minute ride back to buyout to the medics on our medevac. So those were him and those guys were the first to go on the first load, because the driver of that vehicle got a piece of that plasma lodged into his leg, like right onto a nerve, and I think that it cauterized the nerve, so his leg actually survived for a while after that. But he, badass, just continued to drive. He didn't swap out. He said, fuck it, I'm driving, right? So we get off the X. I'm dropping, 40 mics and 105s on bad guys shooting at us from rooftops on our way out. And I start working a medevac. We've got 2 Apaches overhead. We get to this little Marine outpost in the middle of Solder City that just like, dude, I can't even imagine their experience daily. Just getting rockets and just all kinds of shit at them. And they're just hunkered down, manning this damn post, right? And we get inside of that. And my platoon chief's calling out what's going on. We got Nick Check up in my vehicle navigating us, to get there, with the down vehicle sort of hobbling, right? And we get in there. Everybody gets out. We get the guys laid out. I'm getting a medevac ready. It lands, gets those guys, and I'm looking. I see, I can see Jason Lewis there, and I can see the dirt on the other side of his chest, right? Just this big hole. And I'm just trying my best to get a 9-line going. Like, hey, we've got 2 that are done and 1 guy still alive, critical, right? So he's the priority, and the second bird gets the other 2 guys. Now, the incredible thing is we still got 1 guy fucked up with that thing lodged in his leg, and like we're so nervous that, like, if it moves and he bleeds out of the artery, So trying to keep him stable, and then we got to wait for the birds, right? And we're taking fire, we're shooting, we got fucking RPGs people are seeing. And so there's a fight going on while we're doing this medevac. So these 2 Apaches come over, and I just remember thinking, fuck, I don't know if this is doable or anything, but I start calling them, like, hey guys, we got 1 guy who needs to get out of here before this thing, you might save his leg and his life, right? Can you guys, and I just remember my platoon chief was like super into helicopters. So he always said, like, hey, study them. They might have capabilities you don't think of often. So I said, hey, what are the chances you guys can get the co-pilot out on the wing to clip in and get him inside in the seat and medevac him to buyout right now? And they were like,
Apache?
Yeah, an Apache. And they're like, oh shit, hey, we could do that. So I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to try to call out shit if we see anything, like one of you guys, do a tight circle so you can fucking put guns on anybody while the other one's landing, right? And we got an AC-132. And let's do this. So start getting it ready. And they go, hey, we need a second to go call this and get an approval. So he's like, okay, cool, I'm waiting. He goes off. A few seconds later, comes back on the horn. He's like, they're saying we can't do it. And I'm like, fuck, okay. So a few more seconds goes by. He comes back on the horn, calls me, hey, fuck it, we're going to do it. I was like, okay, all right, let's do it. So we do it. The first attempt goes bad because somebody calls out an RPG, so they come down, RPG, and they peel off. I'm like, fuck, all right, it was a false alarm. Somebody thought there was an RPG because there had been some flying around. So cool, come back around. They come back around, they get down, They do it. They get him in there and they fly him back.
Holy shit. Are you?
And they save his leg and his life.
So they fucking land, open the hatch. The co-pilot gets out. This dude climbs in there with some shit stuck in his leg.
And then he clips in and sits on the wing.
And he sat on the wing?
Yeah.
Do you have any pictures of this video? Anything?
No, and actually probably should go back and look. I don't even know if there's a step there, like there, you know, like a little bird or anything. I think he just sat on the fucking wing.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so I wish I kept in touch with these guys. I didn't, if they're out there. But what happened was he got reprimanded after that for disobeying the order, right? Insubordination. So now we're like, hey, they call us. We go through the rest of the next couple nights because the next night we got to stay there and we got to get all these trucks back. So we leave. We're going to leave the next day. Snipers are making sure our route is clear. So we're doing watches, making sure nobody's putting down IEDs. There was actually a couple guys. I can't remember if they got shot or not or engaged, but we get back safe. You know, you can imagine during watch, we're all down there. We just lost all these guys. It was one of the more difficult moments, looking at each other's faces, trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be feeling, and really just like sitting there, you know, waiting. So snipers are doing Overwatch. Gets quiet. We get out of there. The next night we get home. Go into the talk and find out these guys are getting reprimanded. So we're like, God damn it, dude, that sucks, you know? I think some of our leadership probably did some work on that. I'm not sure. But what ended up happening was somebody on their end of their chain of command said, what the fuck? These guys are heroes, right? And these big awards, you got a silver star for it.
Nice.
So in these big awards, you end up getting a silver star from what I understand. These big awards, like, those are the moments that those happen in. But if it goes wrong, then it's like, well, you fucked up, you know? So, but it takes certain people to make that decision in those moments, and that's where those things happen, I think. So I believe you end up getting a silver star.
One, something tells me that you're going to hear from those guys after this. And two, riding on the wing of an Apache out of battle, that's got to be like riding a fucking unicorn with wings out of battle.
Yeah,
like,
pretty
what?
bad. Yeah.
But, wow. I'm curious, how did you deal with the loss? How did the team deal with the loss?
Very hard. Very hard. You know, I got this huge tattoo on my back that ended up becoming like the emblem, sort of the symbol of our platoon, of our troop, and some of the other guys, one of the platoon commanders, even guys on the next rotation after that deployment, you know,
wow.
We're getting that in his memory. And so that symbol's still there. Everyone knows what year and what operation it came from and who it was for. So there is some legacy there on that. And I'm happy about that. So, but it was tough for a few years. It still is tough for a couple of the guys that I know were a lot closer to him than I was as a new guy. I was too busy focusing on getting myself out of trouble to sort of get close to guys. You know, I was just,
yeah.
So, you know, I didn't have as deep of a connection with him as some of the guys did. Still affected me, especially seeing him there like that. And, you know, he was a mentor. He was a great guy to all. He was one of the guys that was really great with all the new guys. And his kids are grown now. I see them around, you know.
Really?
Yeah. I see his wife around. I know his wife.
Do you interact with him?
Yeah. Yeah. Not the kids as much, but for sure his wife. I see her, you know, I see her around. I'm still in that community there with my business and everything. So, but yeah. That was the first deployment.
Jeez. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Wow. How long was it after that operation that you guys went back out?
Yeah, like a couple nights. They gave us a night off. Hey, you guys need to take a night off. Of course, we're all doing heavy drinking, shenanigans around the camp. One of the new guys I'm friends with still thought it would be a good idea to do these like baked bean mortars on the officers' doors because they thought we could get away with it in that moment, and we did. So they set up these little poles, and we had these fucking endless baked beans. I don't know why they kept coming, but like, dude, we couldn't eat enough baked beans. And turn them and sort of get them on the duct tape them to the poles, and then get, from the campfire like a little torch, and just create pressure behind the can to the point that they exploded and then blasted onto the little hooch doors of the head shed.
What the fuck?
And yeah, so the next day, like, all right, guys, you're not going to get away with this shit anymore. And we had to spray those doors off, but there was just baked beans blasted on everybody's fucking doors, like, let them get it out,
Wow, nice.
Yeah, so I think the next night after the baked beans, we were out again,
Damn. Anything else significant on that deployment that you want to talk about?
Yeah, the last mission on that deployment, I was doing a turnover with some Team 2 guys. One guy ended up being in, their JTAC ended up being in Silver and my team at Denver with me. And it was a hairy night. We were just walking our way into target, and there was this tree line, this big, thick tree line. It was supposed to be sort of an easier target, Hey, easier target, it's going to be pretty easy. Of course, it wasn't. So we go, and they had a sniper nest somewhere around those trees, and we're just walking. We can't see anything. I'm talking, I can't see anything in the trees. Or, hey, check those trees out, because we got to go through those trees to get to the target right on the other side, where the town was. So we're out in the open, and all of a sudden, a crack, right? A crack. And we're like, what was that? Everyone kind of takes a knee. And someone comes over the radio and is like, hey, I don't remember his call sign. We're like, Ben just got shot in the chest. Actually, I think it wasn't the first shot. There was a couple shots, and then like a pause, and then another shot. And that's when it came over, because we had all gotten down after the first couple. So he had gotten down, and wherever it was coming from, we're facing it. His plates are here, and a shot comes in and goes like at this angle over top of the plates as he's laying down, and goes out the back. So he's shot in the chest. And one of my best friends now, I was the best man at his wedding, was a guy next to him. He was a corpsman, and he starts reporting immediately like, fuck, we gotta get a medevac now. So we start it, and then we just start getting lit up from the trees from all over, like multiple spots. And it's just like, dude. And so now we're on the ground, like my head sideways, because I can just, when the rounds are going off, you can hear gunfire, but with some experience, if they're close to you or not, and whether you need to get down or not. And they're snapping over our heads. You can hear that snap, and so they're hitting, right? And you can now they're hitting the ground, and like, fuck, now it's really hairy. It's hitting the ground all around everybody between our steps. And so we're on the ground, and they're like, get some fires down. So I'm like, fucking pop that thing up, and I'm like, hey, we're already ready. I'm already preset on those because I just felt weird about that tree line. And I'm like, hey, the fastest way to do this is you see where we're at with the strobes? Can you confirm that? Yes. All right. Now I got a laser. Hey, they're coming from all over there. They're like, yeah, we're already on it. We're ready to shoot. I'm like, all right, just confirm the bad guys by sparkling them right now. So that's where they flash that IR light. I'm like, all right, you're on the right spot. Cleared hot. And the AC-130 just starts dropping. We're just smoking these guys. And we're like, all right, as soon as they start landing, we're bounding back. So now the teams start bounding their guys back. And then the same time I got medevac helos coming in from the other direction I'm talking to. And that corpsman is now running off to the side of the firefight where we're all sort of bounding back, right, in front of the tree line, just directly back. So I'm feeding off of he actually was our XO at the time, great, awesome guy. And he's like, he knows I'm talking, so he's like, I can't pay attention to the gunshots, and I'm just going off of him. He's like, we're up, and I follow him. We're up, we run. He's like, when he goes down, I go down, and I'm dropping. Now we got the Apaches involved. They're like, hey, there's more nests over here to the north that we can see. Those guys are moving around now. They're like setting up and they're moving. We can fire on them right now, rockets. And I'm like, cool, sparkle, clear, hot, right? And I'm just controlling, trying to visualize the best I can this whole situation, and it's clean. We smoked all those guys.
Wow.
And we finally get back. There's like this ditch, and we kind of get back in the ditch. Now we're calling the exfil at the same time as the medevac. The medevac comes during that firefight, and they don't know what's going on. They start flying right through where all this shit's coming down. And so that was one moment where I was like, hey, everyone abort, everybody stop. We stop all fires for a few seconds. I go, you guys need to turn, just take a 30-degree right turn. So they do, and then they fly out of it and over to the guy's buzzsaw. The buzzsaw is that Kim light where we're spinning it around, right? And they land perfectly on that. They get on. Those two are gone to the hospital. And now we're back at the ditch calling for exfil, and we get out of there. Everybody's fine after that. He ends up being fine. You know, he had some complications with his chest for a few years, but he healed up pretty good, I think. And he's still kicking around Virginia Beach.
Good deal.
You know, I haven't seen him in some years, but we're still, I know we're still friends, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the last. Dude. So that was the last one. We get back to the Hooches, and I talked to their JTAC guy who ends up being later one of my teammates in the team. And I go, all right, that's the turnover, bro.
Holy shit, that's a hell of a turnover op. Wow.
Yeah.
Had you shot anybody? Had you killed anybody with a rifle or with on
I
that
did
deployment?
one on the roof team. For a teammate of mine, he was climbing up, and these guys woke up, started pointing their guns around. I had to shoot that guy.
Was that your first kill?
Yeah, that was actually, it wasn't a kill. That was a hard time for me. Besides the JTAC ones, that guy ended up he ended up being paralyzed, and then later he did. I believe he died later, like some time later, like I don't know when. You know, I don't even know if it was during that deployment. I was kind of using one of our translators to kind of update me. But he found some way to find out, like, this guy wasn't dead. So we ended up fucking taking him with us after that because he was still breathing. So we dropped him at the Biop hospital, and I think they essentially recovered him. So it was just a guy on target that woke up and started pointing towards one of our roof team guys. So that guy ended up passing away in the future. He went to DevRib also, and he passed away from a brain tumor, unfortunately, which I've got my opinions about that stuff too, on how so many young guys are developing brain tumors after that. And I think it's talking with EOD guys and understanding the of radiation out of those jammers that we were sitting next to for all those hours all the time in order to block those signals was just vibrating through our brains, right? And the ones that I trust the most believe that it has something to do with it. So I hope that, you know, somebody can look into it a little more these days, because there shouldn't be 30 and 40-year-old dudes popping brain tumors suddenly and passing away. Another guy in my team that happened to, and within a year of finding out, when he was clear before that, passed away. So,
damn,
it hurts a lot to think about those guys with brain tumors.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that
what
stuff scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, was the juice ever worth the squeeze for how many preventative stuff? And I think about it now with the active shooters, you know, things and the hesitancy to prepare or prevent, especially when it comes to money. We're like, we got to spend how much on, you know, a couple of guards or, you know, some ballistic capability you know, or something, just whatever. Training, for sure, training, the active shooter training, all these good things, all these guys out are doing these companies but there's hesitancy to fund it because if you prevent something, there's no evidence that you prevented it. Just nothing happens. So it's just a hard thing to prove to people. So it's a similar thing as like, did those jammers, how many IEDs did they actually stop? We don't know, because if it was a preventative measure that worked, then just nothing happened, you know. And then trying our best to prove that it did work, you know. But there's so many of these brain tumors from guys that, you know, he was a turret gunner, that antenna was right there, you know. The rest of us inside might have been a little bit more protected, but that thing's like, if you can see the diagrams for the frequencies and radiation these things put out, it's fucking not good to sit next to for hours. Every night.
I have not heard that one, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Damn. Well, Chris, where I was going with this is I just want to ask you the difference, you know. I want to ask you the difference of what it feels like to kill via communication with an Apache or a C-130 or whatever versus pulling the trigger.
It's completely different, in my opinion. It's not the same as doing it up close and personal. But all, you know, the times that I did do it, and I got a lot more at Dev Group than I did in the team. I didn't think about that so much. And so when guys, you know, talk about this question, you know, I understand when they say, I didn't think much about it, you know, because we intentionally are desensitized to it. We're more attuned with the actual identification of the target and who it is. Like, is it a man, you know, male? Is he armed? Is he not armed? Or whatever. Than taking the life itself. Because, to be honest with you, the life itself thing is another, it aligns again with that validation thing. It did for me anyways, where it was like, I didn't think too much about it, because if I was the guy that got the kill that night, it was like, felt good. It's like your buddies are like, cool, this guy, we can trust this guy to do his job, you know, and not be affected by it too much. And the same sort of theme comes out of it the more guys that I study and the more guys that I think about and look at, you know, I think about these things now that I have the space to do it. That's now where it kind of comes back to go, those moments I can now go back to just the same way I did with my childhood memories, and now go sort of analyze it and just try my best to see the truth in every one of those moments, you know, for what it was, and then with no other goal than just understanding it the best that I could for me.
Do you remember all of them?
Some of them were a blur, especially if it was during like a firefight. But the ones that were close up, you know, I've got some sniper ones. I think about them sometimes, but, you know, in war, you know, they're trying to kill you and you're trying to kill them. And so I think less about it than I do with the last mission that I did and who I killed. That's the one that I think about. The ones with men, we're fighters. You know, there may or may not be some mutual respect as fighters. For sure, these ones that are going on, like these Hamas guys in Palestine and Israel, like, man, the whole world is on fire about Israel right now because of the collateral damages. And like, how do you fight a war? How would you fight a war if the bad guys, let's just say it was in your neighborhood or your community in the future or something, some war. They're there to kill you. And instead of fighting from what we do in the military, an outpost, a planning center, or whatever, you go there, you put your uniform on, you go fight. Put your uniform on so we can tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys and civilians. And you assume that the good guys or the bad guys may, they have some level of moral compass, right? That we don't train to kill anybody other than the bad guy that we're after. Collateral damage is just, it's a hellish thing. It's part of war. But now pretend that the enemy, or even pretend that you are the one doing it, that you go, I'm going to take advantage of the moral compass of those guys. And I'm just going to go, I'm going to shoot the rockets and missiles from my backyard and then go inside where my family is. And then go, we're good. Fuck them, because they have morals and they're not going to kill me here because I got my wife and my kids and my family. And then it just, you can even escalate it to go, now I can even go do atrocities now. We can go do an attack in their territory and go door to door like they did, raping and pillaging and just the horrific things that everybody wants to deny actually happened. Take the hostages, all this stuff, and then bring them back over. And we're good again because we built all these tunnels under the hospital. And the hospital's functioning, that's fine. We want that to be that way because it's a deterrence for us. It's a capability. And then now when, your enemy, who you see as your enemy, is now attacking you and killing you and having all this collateral damage, is like, you're choosing the battleground there. And it's such a hard problem to think about, and I hope there's some better solution, something that they can figure out, but we're not there experiencing that shit, you know? And they're having to make decisions on some of these high-level Hamas guys that are intentionally using civilians as cover, as a capability, a deterrence capability on purpose, right? And then it's just a terrible way to fight war, and extremist Al-Qaeda does it. Terrorists just tend to do it, It's not even, in my opinion, guerrilla warfare, really, It's kind of a newer concept, maybe. I'm not even sure if that happened in Vietnam or not. I need to read more, but it's happening right now. And we've faced it too. And we try our best, and then we change our ROEs to the point where now we're in danger because as the war evolved, we lost the ability to the point where it became, hey, you guys aren't even going to do any shooting until somebody's already shooting at you. And you're like, that means some of us can get killed before we even engage. That's a hard problem to have, especially if that's happened.
Yeah.
Now there's families out there that like, they couldn't engage those guys because they weren't allowed to until they were getting shot at. So just hard things to think about outside of more than just pro-Palestine, Israel, and, the things that we attach to sensationalism when we see it on the screen, and some of those people that are attaching to those causes, I think, is more related to their own validation. Like, they might be lacking something in their own life that goes further than just this thing, and then every time something happens, people in their environment are now attached to these protests and these things, and everybody wants to feel like they are part of something important. So they go demonstrate, they go do it without even really understanding what it's about or what they're doing. They just go, and validation from all the other people that are doing it in their environment. So it's like whatever's the most accessible thing in your environment to attach to as a cause, doesn't matter if it's bad or toxic or terrible or evil or good, you go do it, I think, for some of the same reasons that I am talking about, with this lack of purpose and validation that we all need.
Yeah, that's a good point. With the Israel stuff, it's extremely complicated, but there are, I don't know if you know this, but I have some friends that were there, and one of which I'm pretty sure we both know probably very well, but they were actually going to flood those tunnels. Did you know about this?
Not yet, no.
They were going to pump some massive, like, ship pump. They were going to, not ship, like SHIP.
Shit pump would suck.
Yeah, that would have been better. But they were going to flood all those tunnels and drown those Hamas guys.
That would be more of a...
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it.
Why wouldn't they do it?
I don't know.
Because...
See, it's
at least like it's that. At least to know that they're at least mindful. I think and truly believe that the Israelis are doing their best to think of ways to target the bad guys without the collateral damage, and then sometimes they have to make hard decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But at least that is more direct towards the enemy than going through whatever's on top that they're fighting under, the hospital or the school or the house or whatever, you know?
I mean, do you know how many of those bad guys I would have drowned out?
I can imagine it must be like an ant farm down there.
Would have been perfect targeting.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. And sometimes that makes me wonder, you know, why wouldn't you do that? Sometimes it's such a simple plan too.
Yeah, like what gets in between the decision, and this is where it gets difficult in war, when social opinions and the energy of the social environment affects leaders' decision making on what they do or not. We see it every time, you know.
Yeah.
Since Vietnam, and you know,
touchy subject and complicated war, as if any war is not complicated, but